Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Giving the Game Away. Today, Ian and I are going to talk about the new monetization mechanics for hyper-casual games. Hey Ian.
Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Excited about the topic of the day.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. Hyper-casual games are always really fascinating to me. We've spoken about them a lot for good reason. Yeah, they're just fascinating. I guess the best place to start is literally just going through the nature of hyper-casual quickly, because we've touched on it so many times.
Yeah.
So literally just, they're very short core gameplay loop games. They've got mass appeal, often with really colorful graphics, very accessible. But they make incredible revenue, upwards of like 600 million in 2019, I think, which is crazy. And they're always topping charts. I know it's a topic that you're very interested in as well. Last time we spoke about it, I think we were speaking about the future of hyper-casual games. Are they going to change to really optimize revenue? We spoke about ultra-casual and hybrid casual. Do you want to speak about either of those quickly?
Yeah, I mean, hyper-casual games generally have short session times, so they use advertising to monetize. So if you look at the average revenue per user, it's actually very low. This is why they need such a high volume of players. And yeah, in terms of the goal is really to create a game that can appeal to everyone. And this is why, they have generally broad themes and just target a really wide audience when it comes to user acquisition. In terms of the next steps, we talked about two ways that market could go. So how can they, now that they are almost tapping into the entire user base, I think it's like 2.5 billion downloads last year or something like that across hyper-casual. So it's hard to grow when you're already pretty much downloaded by everyone. So we thought about two possible ways that this could go to broaden the audience, or at least increase the monetization potential. One of them being ultra casual, which is even more simpler gameplays, where effectively it's not even a game, like it could be like idle game or just something that you tap very low touch. And Homa Games have been pioneering some of that genre. And then we also had hybrid casual, which is trying to integrate some kind of meta game or a story to increase retention, so that try to keep the game simple and appeal to everyone, but also retain users over time. And the finding the balance between the two is always difficult, because when you have a really simple game with 2 or 3 gestures, how do you maintain that engagement over time? It's almost a trade-off compared to more advanced games. So yeah, this is, I think, where we left it off. So far, it looks like some publishers are looking to go either way, but certainly it's going to be one of the type of game to watch for this year.
For sure. But what's amazing me is how slowly the genre is changing. Like, it's not just a sudden upheaval, massive change. Hyper-casual is still staying strong. There's still a lot of hyper-casual publishers. They're making a lot of money. They've got a lot of users. And that's because the business model is still fairly, sound. It's profitable. They spend their money on user acquisition, and it's easy to acquire users because it's so broad appeal. And then as soon as that player opens the game once, they are a profitable player because there's so many ads shown. And that's a very aggressive tactic, but it is incredibly effective, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still tiny margins, and those companies really rely on the volume. And so, when one company really becomes successful and has one big title, they can then use that to cross promote to other titles. So you have really big winners, Voodoo obviously being the main one, because the network effects are becoming really, really strong. And from their audience of previous games, they can now easily grow another game without spending much in acquisition. So it's certainly hard to take over, and for new entrants, it's a very, very crowded space. But at the same time, you only need one game. So the key for the studios is to prototype as fast as they can. Not really try to come up with incredible gameplay, but more test different type of games and see what works, see what doesn't, and just boost the one who are looking promising. So it is really a volume game, and to some extent it's very different from traditional game design. It's not about crafting an incredible experience. It's more about volume and just making sure that people play it for a certain amount of time.
It's not like regular game design at all, exactly as you said. But that's why your monetization design becomes even more important, because you're showing users so many ads. The way that you approach those ads is really key. So we've already spoken about the game design routes that Hypercasual can go down. I think today it would be good to speak about the monetization changes that Hypercasual can experience that will hopefully improve retention time, hopefully improve session time, and therefore make it slightly less of a volume game and keep users in slightly longer, make them even more profitable. And I think there's a few arguments about why session time and retention is low in Hypercasual. One being that the core gameplay loop is really minimalist and simple, and that's not engaging enough. But I struggle with that as an argument because arcade games are literally like the foundation of gaming in general. They have very simple core gameplay loops, and they're sort of relaxing just by being repetitive. Like Tetris, there's not much to Tetris. I know it's not Hypercasual, but it's meditative in a way. So I don't think that's the argument to fixate on. I think a bigger argument is the amount of ads that are shown and how intrusive those ads are. And I'm making this argument purely from the review section of a lot of Hypercasual games. Often people complain about ads, and data from Facebook have shown that about 40% of people drop out of a Hypercasual game or delete it or move on because of seeing too many ads. And that's significant. That's a huge amount of the users just falling off for apparently, for a fair reason, I think. It's crazy. So
it's certainly a mix of these two things. I think that when you have such simple gameplay, but I think what arcade has is even if the core gameplay is simple, you still have a sense of progression generally, where you can hit the next level and then levels kind of change. A lot of Hypercasual, it can be really repetitive. Yeah, you move from level to level, but it doesn't almost change much as far as the user goes. So it's something that is nice, and there are some that you keep playing. But I think the diversity of levels is really what excites people to come back to. So it's kind of a downside of making it really simple, really accessible. The downside is like you might not engage users for that long. But as you said, it's not really their goal. So now if they want to move into increasing the retention, for sure they need to affect the design of the game, and as part of that, the way that they handle monetization.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely an argument for increasing session time and session time drop off through intrusive ads showing. I think that's maybe it's definitely worth talking about now, because we've spoken about the game design elements of it, and combining these two things are probably where the big profit's going to be. I think so. When I was thinking about this before, about why people would drop off because of they're being shown ads and about how credible a claim that is anyway, I was thinking about motivation and why these people are even playing the Hypercasual games in the first place. I stumbled across this research from Facebook, which will go on our site at some point in the form of a blog post. And they were talking about, they showed that about 60% of survey respondents play Hypercasual games to relieve stress. And that's totally fair, especially given the situation that we're going through globally. It's good to just fixate on something and put your mind at ease and not have a worry in the world. Intrusive ads take you out of that brain space, and that's the opposite of relieving stress. If you're coming into a game just to relax and you're faced with 2 30-second unskippable video ads in a row, you're just going to get more stressed.
Yeah, no, it is certainly like that. Yeah, it's stress and annoyed, I guess,
Yeah.
especially when you have such short time to play, and some of these games are really repetitive. You're just trying to, you know, hit a certain goal, and it just feels like it's preventing you from doing that, because you
Yeah.
have to sit through that and generally watch the same ad that you've seen 50 times already. So I think it's and subconsciously that's probably why after a while people would say, you know, just one level, just one more level, and then when the interruption hits, they would drop off. And this is also why, you know, why Netflix queues content like that, or why YouTube does it. If you give the user a gap, that's generally where they would switch off and leave the platform. So that's actually what these ads are doing in the game. They just create these mental interruptions, and probably you're more likely to, if you measure where people are living in the game, it has to be at the when an ad starts playing. Not that they're leaving because of the ad, but that ad gives them the break to say, okay, enough with this. If they were immediately going to the next level, they would probably play longer. So that's a no-brainer. Yeah.
The stress point I actually relate back to social media quite easily. Like social media is, a lot of people go on social media to try and ease stress, but study after study shows they just get more stressed.
Yeah, it's not the way to do that. It's like drugs. It's just the only thing that social media wants to do more is to scroll more. And sometimes you catch yourself doing that, and you know, what am I looking for? Nothing. You're just looking for that great piece of content, maybe, or that great video, but it's almost like your brain is trained to look for those things, and you don't actually want to do that.
No, exactly. So that 40% statistic I said before of people who drop off and they say it's because of ads, the actual number might be even higher, because that's just the people who are conscious of it. The people who are like, yeah, the ads were too much. I'm sure there's plenty of people who don't even realize that the ads are causing this like motivational blockage, I guess. And it is a motivational blockage. Basically, we're talking about the fact that people are going to these games to relieve stress, but the games aren't meeting that need, and that's based on their monetization strategy. Some of the time, at least. Obviously, game design is another factor.
I mean, look at as you said, the reviews. I mean, one out of two reviews would be about that. Like, this is why people write reviews. It's to say, yeah, awesome game, but you know, and as a hyper casual publisher, it's, you know, we talk about how much money they're making, but the margins are really, really slim, right? So removing one ad could be the difference between profitability and not. So they're really left with very little alternatives. They don't have the luxury to, you know, introduce a new in-app purchase that users would buy when they are a month into the game. Like, there's no margin to make any changes. So they need to keep monetizing to keep the light on and keep acquiring more users. So yeah, they're always juggling these two things.
Yeah, it's such a challenge, and it's such a minefield as a hyper casual monetization designer, because of those hyper thin margins, exactly as you're saying. Which is why I think that the change in advertising that's happening through player friendly ad options like in play, I think that could be a golden opportunity for hyper casual devs. And obviously we're biased in that, but we're not.
Disclaimer.
We wouldn't be saying it if we didn't believe it at all. And I think, you know, the facts sort of speak for themselves. These publishers can't show fewer ads. The margins are too slim. But the issue the ads are causing is that they're interrupting gameplay. They're taking users out of it. They're causing stress when they should be relieving stress. And if those ads were non-intrusive, if those ads were part of gameplay, be that in the form of a banner ad in the background, or a video that that a player can walk past, or a 3D object that is part of, that's part of the player character, not intrusive. So that might be the route that these publishers can take to keep the ad numbers higher, but improve retention time and session time.
Absolutely.
I
think that's one side of it. The other side is, if you start integrating these ads inside the game itself. So a billboard in the background or a video playing on top of a stadium or something. You can also monetize the entire gameplay session, not just these interruptions.
Sure.
So not only do you not, annoy your users, but actually your monetization real estate increases, because now suddenly you can target the entire estate. So yeah, it creates really incredible opportunities for publishers, and they can even use both and slowly reduce the number of annoying ads as well. We've seen already some publishers doing that, which is really, really interesting. Not just adding in-play solutions to monetize more, but actually to remove the ones and overall improve retention and store ratings. So yeah, I think over time, it's a bit of a no-brainer. You can maximize your number of ad impressions per sessions. You have more and more brands and advertisers, willing to target those gamers. So it's really creating a new economy, the in-play economy.
Yeah. I think that's my favorite part of this entire concept. It feels like a win-win-win between players, developers, and advertisers. Because a player seeing an advert that's causing them stress, even if they don't realize it's stress, that's a negative brand impression. Whereas if you're associating a brand with gameplay that you're enjoying anyway, that's positive. The player is experiencing less stress. The developer is experiencing the same or even more revenue because they have a lot more impression opportunities. That's the thing that excites me most. It's the fact that it's a real middle ground. It's redefining this ad strategy that publishers need to have. It's crazy.
And it's one of the only, and this is the reason why we built in play like this. It's really to be player centric, and it's the first ever monetization solution, advertising based, that actually even remotely considers the players. I remember when I first started Admix, and just going around conferences about advertising and so on, just learning about the space and meeting people. I went 2 days to a certain conference here in London, and it was all about publishers and advertisers. They didn't mention users or consumers once. And it was like, I was coming from outside the space, right? From a game publisher standpoint, but I was just, who is seeing those ads? You don't even mention them once. It was not even part of the consideration, like how could we tailor the experience for them? It was all about increasing yield for the publisher and maximizing performance for the advertiser. But I think you're missing a big part if you don't actually take into account the most important part of the equation, which is how do people actually consume it? Because that defines the performance of the ad, and therefore how much advertisers are willing to pay for it. So it conditions everything, including the revenue. So yeah, it's just this, we talked about traditional advertising really being a necessary evil, I would say, at least on the internet. Like real advertising, outdoor advertising, TV is different, but advertising has really been commoditized, and we forgot about the art of advertising. We forgot about the message. It's all about some of these metrics, and we lost ourselves in the way, and we forgot to think about the most important part, which is the player. So hopefully in play will contribute to put the player back at the center of that equation.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully there are other player-friendly advertising innovations from other people, because obviously we're looking out for the player in general, and that is the success here. Having a successful company is important, but at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is create a great middle ground for everyone. And hopefully other people are going to follow.
This is why we talk about in play a lot, and not always Admix. Like we have pioneered in play, but I really see in play as more than just something that will transcend Admix. It's a movement. I think it's the first ever player first monetization movement, and it's helping small publishers actually make a living, helping advertisers on the other side target an audience, and potentially small businesses who want to leverage a gaming audience. So yeah, I think it's certainly bigger than the company, and hopefully it gets picked up by other players that can build innovation on top of that.
Yeah, and hopefully, as we spoke about today, it will help solve a growth challenge in the hyper-casual market that we're currently seeing.
Yeah, that was a great angle. And I think hyper-casual or not, we're seeing more and more studios adopt this format. I think hyper-casual, because they rely so much on monetization through ads, like they really are more marketing than gaming companies. They are really marketing companies. They know exactly the average revenue per user, how much it costs to acquire users. So they have relied on this interruption-based marketing for now a few years, and so it would take time for them to transition towards a totally new model, because they rely on it so much. They don't just use advertising to generate 50% or 20% of the revenue. It is the entire revenue. So it will certainly take time, but I think what you described was a really interesting perspective, and hopefully we'll see more hyper-casual publishers jumping in.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. Awesome chat about an amazing topic. I'm sure we'll speak about hyper-casual games again.
Yeah, can't miss it.
Can't miss it. But for now, thank you very much, Sam. A fantastic
Thanks, Ian.
chat.
And if you guys have any questions, pop them down below. Thanks everyone for listening, and I will see you next week for another episode.